Jazzcast Pros.
Welcome to the Grace and Grind podcast. This is the space where power meets purpose. And this podcast is for my fellow powerhouses, the high-powered woman in high heels, the C-suite executive woman or entrepreneur who is already a leader. I am Dr. Pamala Brown-Grinion, CEO of Totally Unique Educational Consultants. I would like to be your new executive coach. I have helped thousands of women just like you heal from the inside out and walk in their authenticity. The Grace and Grind podcast on the Jazzcast Pros Network. I would like to invite you to join me and 5 fellow podcasters from the Jazzcast Pros Network for our first live studio audience on September 27th at WXXI for the Aligned Entrepreneur Pod-a-Thon. You don't have to be an entrepreneur, but if you want to self-improve, this is definitely the place for you. It's going to be held from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. My guest will be none other than my dear friend and soul sister, Maisha Beard of the Maisha Experience. And we will be discussing confidence is the new executive currency. Now, you can elect to stay all day at the Pod-a-Thon, or if you are coming as my guest and you like to attend my session, it will be from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Okay? Tickets can be purchased from jazzcastpros.com. That's jazzcastpros.com. And today we are going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart. It's emotional etiquette and my emotional etiquette framework. Yes, I said my emotional etiquette framework. I created this model based off of my own life experiences, and I wrote a book. And the book is called I'm writing a book, I should say, and it's called She Rises with Emotional Etiquette: Foundations for the Journey Ahead. And what I'd like to do today is do a reading of an excerpt from the book. Now, the book is actually a prequel to another book called Emotional Etiquette: The Hidden Language of Healed Women. So I would like to jump right in, but before I do that, I want to say that you can pre-order your copy right now. So my dedication to my younger self, the girl who carried silent burdens while still daring to dream, the young woman who smiled on the outside while storms raged on the inside, the one who questioned her worth but kept showing up anyway. I see you, I honor you, and I thank you for never giving up. You are the reason I can stand here today with healing in my heart and grace in my presence. Your resilience became my foundation. Your tears watered the soil of my triumphs. Your courage to keep going gave birth to the woman who now writes these words. This book is for you, Pam. The reminder that your pain was not wasted, your lessons were not in vain, and your story has always been preparing you for leadership, healing, and legacy. And what I want you to do is always remember that you have the power to control how your trauma shows up in your life, how you respond to it, how much power you give it, and how it impacts you. Lovingly, your future self. And now I would like to read my preface to you. I created emotional etiquette because I saw a missing link in how women, especially Black women, executive Black women, were being prepared for leadership. Too often we were told to perform our presence without addressing the silent wounds we carried inside. I knew that if women were ever going to rise whole, that we needed a framework that didn't just polish the surface, but restored our souls. When I first coined the phrase emotional etiquette in 2023, It was because I realized I was using it and I didn't even know it. And because I saw way too many high functioning, well dressed, intelligent women sabotaging opportunities, relationships, careers, and their peace by not understanding their own emotional rhythm. They could dress the part, they could speak the part, but emotionally they were unpredictable. They knew the right fork to use at dinner, the handshake at networking events was stern and firm, and the wardrobe for the boardroom was impeccable. But trauma, shame, rejection, or loss still whispered, "You're not enough. You don't belong here." This is the very opposite of emotional etiquette. Emotional etiquette is where a woman's healing, authority, and refinement meet. Emotional healing is the foundation. It is the process of acknowledging, confronting, and releasing the unspoken grief, shame, or residue of past experiences. Healing clears out the emotional refrigerator so you are no longer leading from expired pain, but from renewed strength. Emotional authority is the bridge. Once healed, you must reclaim your right to lead your emotions instead of being led by them. Emotional authority means being able to regulate yourself under fire, to choose your response instead of reacting from old wounds, and to embody calm confidence in the moments that matter most. Etiquette, manners, is the expression. It is how healing and authority show up in the world, in your world, through your posture, your presence, your words, and your rituals of refinement. Etiquette and manners provide the structure and scripts that allow women to enter any room with dignity, composure, and confidence. Together, these three form the emotional etiquette framework, a transformational practice that begins with inner healing, builds into emotional mastery, and flows outward into refined presence. It's not about being perfect, it's about being whole. And when a woman embodies emotional etiquette, she doesn't just do her job well, she inspires, she influences, and she leads with grace. This framework was also created out of my personal ineptness of wholeness, self confidence, and presence. I was emotionally broken from as far back as I can remember, and I lived with that brokenness until I was almost 40 years old. I raised children while still being burdened with trauma. I worked in professional settings, worked in leadership roles, and I led others, all while experiencing the hurt, shame, embarrassment, and guilt of trauma. I modeled professionally, became a wife, attended college, all while suffering silently on the inside. But it was my inner healing, owning my emotional authority, and mastering my etiquette and manners skills that transformed me into the person that I am today. I used all three in conjunction with each other to develop my internal and external presence. I realized that traditional etiquette and manners alone could polish the surface, but they could not restore my soul. And emotional healing alone could help release my pain, but without the structures of presence and refinement, I would still struggle to embody that healing in my personal and professional spaces. I combined them because I knew leadership requires both the inner work of healing and the outer practice of refinement. Also, let me say that I could never carry this level of external presence without being healed and whole on the inside. I know because I tried for many years and I failed miserably. But I did make it look good. This is why I understand the importance of emotional etiquette. Now I ask you, who is better to teach you and be your executive coach than someone who has lived on both sides of trauma, but who has polished herself on the inside and out? Now I walk in my authentic, totally unique self with boldness and confidence and freedom. And I would like to help you do the same. Now, I would like to read my introduction to you. Every great journey begins with preparation. Before you lace up your heels and step into the boardroom, before you stand tall at the podium, and before you claim your seat at the table, you need a foundation. Emotional Etiquette, the prequel, is that foundation. This book was born from a truth I've seen over and over again in my years of coaching, training, and walking alongside powerful women. We are taught to perform, but not how to prepare. We are told how to sit, how to smile, how to dress, and how to network. But rarely are we shown how to heal. Rarely are we given the tools to unpack the emotional baggage that threatens to follow us into every room we enter. Emotional etiquette is more than good manners. It is the art of aligning what you feel on the inside with how you carry yourself on the outside. It is a discipline that invites you to pause, to breathe, to regulate your emotions, and then to respond with grace. It is both healing and habit, presence and polish. This prequel is where we begin by looking at the unseen parts of ourselves that no one else may ever acknowledge, but that shape everything about how we show up. Before we talk about etiquette at the table, we must talk about the residue in our hearts. Before we talk about posture and poise, we must talk about pain and perspective. And before we refine the external, we must restore the internal. My hope is that as you turn these pages, you begin to feel seen. You begin to exhale. You begin to recognize that you do not have to choose between being accomplished and being authentic, between being polished and being whole. This book is your invitation to both. This is not a manual of perfection. It is a guide for preparation. It is the beginning of your journey toward emotional etiquette, a way of living, leading, and loving that allows you to rise with resilience and carry yourself with confidence while leading with grace. So take a breath, take a moment, and take this journey with me, because before you step fully into the woman you are becoming, we're going to lay the foundation that will carry you into the place where God preordained you to be. So let's get into day one, emotional etiquette. I'd like to first start by asking you a question. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the tension, even though no one said a word? That's your emotional etiquette doing its silent work, detecting the lack of it lingering in the air. Sometimes you're the one discerning the emotional climate, while other times you are the climate carrying the energy that shifts the entire room. You can walk in with your edges laid, heels sharp and pearls polished, yet leave emotional footprints that stomp on the hearts of others without uttering a single word. Because it's not just how you present, it's also about what you carry. We carry the residue of unresolved trauma, the echoes of unspoken pain, and the silent weight of childhood neglect. And unless we process it intentionally, we start bleeding on people who didn't cut us. Our facial expressions, our tone of voice, the way we the way we sigh, side eye, or shut down can all be weapons of emotional mass destruction. They all speak volumes, and people can feel us long before they hear us, and sometimes before they even see us. That's the unspoken language of emotional etiquette. It doesn't just show up in your words, it shows up in your posture, your pacing, your patience, and your presence. It shows up in the very way you respond to being challenged, misunderstood, or ignored. It reveals whether you've done the inner work or if you're still emotionally leaking through polished armor. What is emotional etiquette? Emotional etiquette is a structured framework for navigating emotions with wisdom, grace, and authority. It integrates emotional intelligence, trauma informed care, etiquette, and manners with emotional authority into a cohesive ecosystem that transforms how we lead, communicate, and connect. It's not just theory, it's practical, a repeatable process women can apply in the boardroom, at home, or in the community. It helps women heal old patterns of silencing emotions or of exploding under pressure. It creates a bridge between inner wholeness and outer presence, making confidence a lived experience rather than a performance. The emotional etiquette framework is a guide for mastering your inner world so you can thrive in your outer world. It teaches you to be aware of your emotions, to take authority over them, express them with wisdom, and carry yourself with grace. It's not about perfection, it's about presence, healing, and taking back your power. Emotional etiquette is a term I first coined in 2023 after completing my dissertation. It is the practice of honoring your emotions with intentionality, maturity, and grace without denying them or being dominated by them. It is not about suppressing feelings to appear composed. It's about owning your emotional truth in a way that promotes healing, wholeness, and relational wisdom. It's how healed women lead with compassion, with clarity, and courage. Emotional etiquette is not about pretending to be okay. It's about showing up with emotional maturity, grace, and self awareness. It's knowing when to speak, when to pause, and how to navigate your emotions so that they don't hijack the room or your peace. It's not about people pleasing. Instead, it's purpose led presence. It refers to the practice of managing and expressing your emotions in a graceful and respectful, mindful and socially appropriate manner. It involves being, again, self aware, emotionally intelligent, and considerate of others' emotions in personal, professional, and social interactions. The ultimate goal of emotional etiquette is to support women and girls with inner healing to the point of mastering their emotional authority. Embracing emotional authority means you understand that you have the power to control how your trauma shows up in your life, how it impacts you, how you respond to it, and how much power you give it. I want you to absorb that in your spirit like you believe it, and I want you to recite it with vigor by repeating after me. I have the power to control how my trauma shows up in my life, how it impacts me, how I respond to it, and how much power I give it. Every time I say that, I wish someone had told me that I had the power when I was young. Even if I didn't understand it at the time, I think I would have eventually understood the value of those words at some point in my life, way before adulthood. Now, why emotional authority? Because emotional authority is not about control, it's about conscious leadership. When you claim emotional authority, you are no longer at the mercy of your old pain, unhealed wounds, or generational scripts. You are taking your rightful seat at the head of your emotional table, deciding what enters, what stays, and what must go. You are no longer simply reacting to life, you're responding with wisdom and intention. But first, you have to reclaim your dominion. Reclaiming your dominion starts with acknowledging the roots of your pain and the patterns that have shaped your emotional responses. By identifying the origin stories, whether it's childhood neglect, abuse, abandonment, cultural silence, or internalized shame, you begin to understand the forces that may have limited your emotional freedom. This awareness is the first step toward rewriting your narrative and choosing healing over hiding. Authority isn't about perfection. I have to keep saying that. It's about presence. It means showing up fully in your truth, even when it's messy, and choosing how to steward your emotions, again with grace, not guilt. It means being the narrator of your emotional story, not the silenced character in someone else's. Learning emotional etiquette means you give yourself permission to be fully human, fully woman, without letting your hurt, your trauma, or your triggers write your legacy. It's not about judgment, it's about liberation. It's self control without self suppression. It's being powerful, not overpowering. Being loving without losing yourself. It's holding space without drowning in it. Emotional etiquette is the art of handling your emotions and using them to guide, not govern your every interaction. And once you master this, you don't just enter rooms, you elevate them. Today, emotional etiquette is central to leadership development, emotional healing, and trauma informed empowerment. Now, let's talk about the foundational pillars of emotional etiquette, and there are seven. To process emotional etiquette as a personal growth journey, it's best to approach the seven pillars in a logical, healing centered order, one that mirrors how emotions are first felt, then managed, and finally expressed with elegance and authority. Here is what I recommend as the sequential flow. Number one, emotional awareness, which is implied in emotional intelligence. You can't regulate what you don't recognize. Before any transformation can occur, you must first notice and name what you're feeling. Emotional intelligence sets the foundation by giving you insight into your internal and external emotional landscapes. Self awareness is critical for developing emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is paramount for acquiring emotional etiquette. Number two, emotional attunement. You have to feel it in order to free it. After becoming aware, you learn to be emotionally present. Attunement helps you slow down, sit with your feelings, and tune into what others may be feeling as well, without rushing to fix, flee, fawn, or fabricate your emotions. Number three, emotional regulation. Pause is power. Now that you're attuned, you must regulate. This is where you gain control, not by suppression, but by calming the nervous system, practicing mindfulness, and making space between trigger and response. Here is where you woosah. Here is when you exhale. And here is where those split second decisions matter. You must think about what you do and say before doing and saying. Number four, emotional tact. Say it with softness and strength. Once regulated, you're ready to speak. Tact allows you to express yourself clearly and compassionately while choosing words and tone that honor both you and the listener. Have you ever heard, sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it? That phrase alone suggests that emotional tact is important. Number five, emotional boundaries. Every healthy yes needs a confident no. With tact in place, you now protect your emotional well being. Boundaries defined what is yours to carry and what is not. This step empowers you to say what you need without guilt or collapse. Say what you mean and mean what you say. If you don't have the capacity for something or someone, communicate that. Be firm with your boundaries while still being gracious. Let your no be no and be okay with that. And if it's difficult for you to say no, then say what I say. I don't have the capacity for that at this time. It still means no, but it's a little more digestible for people to accept for some reason. It may make it a little easier for you to set boundaries for yourself. Number 6, emotional discipline. Stay grounded when it gets gritty. This is the art of handling hard things well. Discipline means you don't default to emotional extremes in tough conversations. It's grace under fire, diplomacy in disagreement, and maturity in motion. This means you do not make emotional decisions or behave with emotional conduct. Before you behave or say something out of character, ask yourself, is this situation small, medium, large, extra large, or am I supersizing it? Be honest in your assessment and act accordingly, but keep it cool, calm, classy, and quiet, regardless of the size. And number 7, emotional reframing. Change how you see it, and you'll change how you heal. Lastly, you'll learn to transform pain into perspective. Reframing turns emotional bruises into breakthroughs. It's the final shift where old stories are rewritten and wounds become wisdom. If you can teach yourself how to think differently about your trauma, you can rewire your brain's responses to that trauma. Together, these 7 pillars form a sacred scaffolding for women healing from trauma, especially from adverse childhood experiences or ACEs. They guide your transformation from being emotionally reactive to emotionally refined. Now let's talk about reframing trauma through emotional authority. Trauma has a way of hijacking the stories we tell ourselves. It convinces us that the worst thing that happened to us is the truest thing about us. And if we're not careful, we spend years replaying the pain, rehearsing the insults, reliving the betrayal, giving our trauma more authority than it deserves. But here's the truth. Trauma may shape us, but it doesn't define us. And when we choose to reframe trauma through the lens of emotional authority, we shift from being victims of our stories to authors of it. Emotional authority means you reclaim the power to decide how your past shows up in your present, not by denying what happened, but by refusing to let it control who you are becoming. Remember, you have the power to control how your trauma, your life's circumstances, your experiences, and your challenges, how they show up in your life, how you respond to them, how much power you give them, and how much you allow them to impact you. You do have the power. You have the power to stop letting trauma haunt you. And if you really believe you have the power, then your past trauma should not still be haunting you today. Belief without action is just theory. Power is proven in practice. Yes, your pain was real. Yes, your trauma left a mark. But if you keep rehearsing the wound instead of reframing the wisdom, you are giving your past more authority than your present. You cannot control what happened to you, but you can control how it lives in you. That is emotional authority. To keep carrying the same fear, the same shame, or the same anger year after year is not evidence of your trauma. It is evidence of your permission. Somewhere along the line, you agreed to let the past stay alive. As psychiatrist and trauma expert Bezo van der Kolk explains, the body keeps the score. Trauma is stored in our bodies, in our muscles, and in our nervous system. But healing begins when we create new experiences of safety and empowerment. In other words, you cannot erase what happened, but you can retrain your body and mind to stop reliving it. Every time you stand tall, breathe deeply, and remind yourself that I have the power to control how this trauma shows up in my life, you are shifting from haunted to healed and from powerless to powerful. Now, let's talk about how to think about trauma differently. Most of us have been conditioned to think of trauma only as damage. But what if you begin to see it as data instead? Trauma is not proof of your weakness, it's evidence of what you've survived. I like to say that again. Trauma is not proof of your weakness, it's evidence of what you survived. Emotional authority calls you to reframe the story instead of asking, why me? Instead, I want you to begin asking, what can my trauma teach me? Betrayal can teach you discernment. Abandonment can teach you self reliance. Loss can teach you gratitude and can teach you compassion. This doesn't make the trauma good, but it does allow you to extract the wisdom without keeping the wound open. How to respond to trauma differently. When triggers arise, emotional authority gives you a new script. Instead of spiraling into shame or anger, you learn to pause, process, and proceed. Pause means to breathe, to recognize the trigger and name it. Process means that you ask yourself, what is really happening here? Is this a wound from the past or reality of the present? And to proceed means that you choose a response rooted in the present moment, not the past injury. Responding with emotional authority doesn't mean you ignore your feelings. It means you give yourself permission to lead them rather than letting them lead. Now, here's the secret: the way you think about your trauma shapes the way you feel about it. If you rehearse it as a curse, you will live in bitterness. But if you reframe it as a classroom where you learn from it, then you will live in growth. So practice self talk that acknowledges the wound but affirms your worth. Yes, this happened to me, but I am not broken. I am becoming. Practice embodiment, standing tall, breathing deep, choosing a posture that communicates confidence, even when your heart is still aching. Practice releasing rituals like journaling, prayer, meditation, or even writing letters that you'll never send. These are ways to clear space inside so the residue doesn't remain. Remember, you have the power to control how you process, release, and rewrite the story of your pain. That is all that I am going to read to you today. If you want to learn more about emotional etiquette, you can join my masterclass every second and fourth Thursday from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And it is a free masterclass. Okay? Or you can register today for the 10-week Emotional Etiquette Bootcamp, which begins Tuesday, September 30th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And there is a cost for that training. Also, while I'm inviting you, I would like to invite you to join me and 5 fellow podcasters from the Jazz Cast Pros Network for our first live studio audience on September 27th at WXXI for the Aligned Entrepreneur Pod-a-Thon. You don't have to be an entrepreneur, but if you want to self improve, this is definitely the place for you. It's going to be held from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. My guest will be none other than my dear friend and soul sister, Maisha Beard of the Maisha Experience. And we will be discussing confidence is the new executive currency. Now, you can elect to stay all day at the Pod-a-Thon, or if you are coming as my guest and you like to attend my session, it will be from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Okay? Tickets can be purchased from jazzcastpros.com. That's JAZZCASTPROS.com. I'd like to thank you for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed what you've heard. Remember to create your totally unique day on purpose, and remember that you have the power to control how your trauma shows up in your life, how you respond to it, how much power you give it, and how it impacts you. I'll see you next time for the next episode of the Grace and Grind podcast.